She'll never say this out loud, not to her friends, not even to herself, but deep down, every woman is desperately craving a man who gives her these 4 feelings. Not flowers, not compliments, feelings. Emotional jolts so powerful they bypass logic and go straight to the soul. That man doesn't chase. He doesn't seek validation. He makes her feel something she can't explain, but can never forget. Right now, most men are stuck, begging, texting, giving everything, and getting nothing back but confusion and rejection. Why? Because they were told to be good. They were told to be available. They were told to be predictable. And predictability is death. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be unforgettable. Today, I'm exposing the truth that unlocks obsession. 4 feelings that make her chase, crave, and commit. No more chasing, no more proving yourself, no more being her emotional support puppy. If you want to flip the dynamic, where she invests, where she initiates, where she earns you, then don't move a muscle. This is the blueprint you've never been told. If you're ready to finally understand the game you were never taught to play, comment below, I attract, not chase. You've been lied to. Sold a dream that if you're just nice enough, patient enough, stable enough, she'll finally see your worth. That's not how this works. Women don't fall in love with your resume. They fall for the impact you create, the storm you awaken inside them, the men she remembers, the men she chases. They make her feel something, a specific set of feelings that are so powerful, so addictive. They override logic. Today, I'm going to break those feelings down. And not just talk about them, I'll give you the exact behaviors that trigger them. This video isn't for boys playing pretend. It's for men who are ready to reclaim their power, not through manipulation, not through games, through understanding what truly captivates the female mind. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make you dangerous. A man who women don't just notice, but obsess over. Number 1. She loves to feel intrigued. Every moment you hesitate before answering, every silence you let linger, every time you look away instead of explaining yourself, you create an emotional gap she desperately wants to fill, and this gap becomes her obsession because it represents something she cannot control, something she cannot predict, and that drives her curiosity wild, not because she's manipulative, but because this is how desire is sustained, by uncertainty, by questions unanswered, by layers she can't immediately peel back, by the feeling that there's more under the surface and she's the only one who can uncover it. When you speak with intention, not excess, when you look her in the eye but say less than she expects, when you pause at the perfect time and let the silence say what words cannot, you build tension, and tension is the rope she pulls herself in with. Imagine this: a man who walks into a room and doesn't feel the need to explain himself, doesn't interrupt the energy with forced jokes or excessive talking, but rather stands firm, listens more than he speaks, and watches with presence instead of performing with need. How does a woman respond? She adjusts, she pays attention, she senses that this man operates from depth, not desperation, and that feeling alone makes her alert. It shifts the dynamic from, he's lucky to talk to me, to, what does he know that I don't? And this shift is everything, because the most magnetic men are not loud. They're still, not because they're hiding, but because they've mastered the power of making others come to them. Now think back. How many times have you shared too much too soon? How many dates have you sat on spilling every thought, every plan, every weakness, thinking it would build trust? Did it work? Or did you feel her pull back, become less interested, maybe even disappear? It's not because you were too emotional. It's because you left no room for intrigue, no space for her imagination to run. And imagination is the birthplace of desire. The man who is intriguing doesn't lie. He doesn't play games, but he knows that less is more, that clarity kills curiosity, and that women don't fall for stories with obvious endings. They fall for plots with twists, chapters they can't skip, tension they can't resolve without coming back. It's not about being mysterious for mystery's sake. It's about being a man of substance, a man who has lived, who has pain and triumph written in his silence, who doesn't need to prove his worth with his mouth because his energy speaks louder. And yes, sometimes she will press you, ask questions, dig, try to force her way in. And the test is simple. Don't resist, but don't reveal too fast either. When she asks why you're so calm, say, "I don't talk much about things that matter until I know someone can understand them." When she asks what you're thinking, say, "A lot, but not everything's ready to be said." When she wants to know everything about you right now, you give her just enough to feel like she's earned the next layer, and that's how you pull her in, one quiet moment at a time. Because being intriguing isn't about acting, it's about restraint. It's about being the storm beneath the surface, the ocean she can't see the bottom of, and you don't do that by trying to impress. You do that by not needing to, by moving with purpose, by listening deeply and speaking only when it matters. Think of a time when a woman couldn't stop texting you, when she reread your messages, when she asked friends what you might have meant. What did you do then? Likely, you gave her a sense that there was more, that she hadn't fully figured you out, and that feeling, that chase, is what drives female desire more than anything logical, more than any list of traits or achievements. Remember, when she knows everything, she feels nothing new. And what's new is what excites her, what drives her to think about you when you're not around, what pushes her to initiate contact, to ask questions, to wonder what you're doing when you're not with her. So if you want to be that man, the one she replays in her mind when she's lying in bed, the one she compares others to, the one she can't forget, you need to become the man who gives her just enough to feel invested, but never enough to feel finished. Your story should be a novel. She never wants to end, not a pamphlet she reads once and throws away. Every conversation is a chance to reveal a little less. Not because you're hiding, but because you're showing her that knowing you is a journey, not a transaction. And this journey needs layers, it needs pauses, it needs moments of, "I didn't expect that," and "What did he mean by that?" That's how you create emotional traction. So how do you do it practically? You start by slowing down. Don't rush to answer texts, not out of game playing, but because your life is full, you're centered. You don't need her energy to validate your own. When you're on a date, ask questions that reveal her layers before offering yours. When you speak, speak with gravity, like each word was chosen, not thrown. Stop volunteering your history without being asked. If she wants to know, let her dig. And when she does, reward her curiosity with insight, not exposure. Give her your mind in pieces, your thoughts in puzzles, your truths in moments, and she will return to you not out of obligation, but out of obsession. And that is what men who understand intrigue have mastered. They make women want to know them, instead of begging to be seen. Because the truth is, the most desirable men are not always the loudest or the flashiest, but the ones who carry their story in silence, who offer their presence like an invitation, not a performance, and who understand that a woman falls not when she sees you fully, but when she realizes she never fully can. She falls when she feels that knowing you will take time, effort, and emotional risk. And because humans value what they work for, her emotional investment grows with every mystery you hold, every moment you pause instead of pouring, every answer you delay just enough to be remembered. So start living your life like a man who doesn't broadcast, who doesn't overshare, who lets people earn him one layer at a time, because the most magnetic men don't demand attention. They attract it through presence, silence, and intrigue. Number 2, she loves to feel challenged. When you hold your ground without defensiveness, when you disagree with calmness and stand on your values even when it costs you validation, you create a powerful emotional shift in her that demands respect and stirs something primal within her. And that's not about being rude or difficult. It's about showing her that your identity doesn't bend under pressure, that your attention isn't a reward handed out for good behavior, but something she earns by showing depth, effort, and consistency. Because the men who are truly respected by women are the ones who don't flinch when they're tested, who don't change their opinion just because it's inconvenient, who can say no and mean it without fearing her reaction, and that strength isn't loud or arrogant, it's measured, it's calm. It's in the way you listen without needing to agree, the way you look her in the eye and say, "I see your point, but I'm not moving mine." And in that moment, she may act annoyed, may even get frustrated, but underneath, a switch flips, because she just met a man who doesn't need to be liked to feel strong, and that man is rare, unforgettable, and dangerously attractive. And the reason this works is because women are wired to crave polarity, emotional contrast, that feeling of bumping up against resistance and realizing the man in front of them has an edge, a code, a line that won't be crossed for comfort or compliments, and you don't have to be aggressive to show this. Imagine you're on a date and she tests your humor with a subtle jab, a sarcastic comment. Instead of reacting or apologizing or trying to win her approval, you simply pause, smirk slightly, and redirect the conversation with a subtle assertiveness that tells her, "I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to be respected." And that shift in tone does something incredible. It shows her she's dealing with someone who has boundaries, who won't be moved just because she's attractive. And the second she realizes she can't emotionally lead you, she becomes fascinated with where your strength comes from. She begins investing emotionally to try to understand you better, and every little moment where you stay grounded under pressure adds layers to your character in her mind. It could be something as simple as not laughing at a joke you don't find funny, not changing your weekend plans because she suddenly wants attention, not responding instantly when she's being vague or dismissive, because your value isn't tied to pleasing her. And that detachment, that sense of self-priority, is what makes her engage more deeply, because she sees a challenge, a man who stands for something, who values his time, his energy, his mission, and that makes every moment she gets from you feel earned, not given away cheaply. Remember, women don't fall in love with compliance, they fall in love with conviction, and every time you express a standard, even if it creates temporary friction, you're sending a message. I'm not here to be chosen, I'm here to choose. And that message, that energy, creates a pull that's almost irresistible because it makes her wonder who you are beneath that self-control, makes her question how she can meet your standards instead of constantly testing whether you'll lower them. And think about your own life. Who do you admire more? The person who agrees with everyone and avoids all conflict, or the one who calmly says what he believes, regardless of who's listening? The second one, right? Because truth, when delivered without fear, commands attention, and women are no different. They respect men who stay centered, who don't chase temporary harmony at the expense of authenticity. And that doesn't mean you're cold, it means you're clear. It means your yes means something because your no isn't afraid to show up. Now, ask yourself, when was the last time you let a woman talk over your opinion because you were afraid of losing her? When was the last time you said yes to something you didn't want just to avoid disappointing her? Those are the moments where your power leaked out and she felt it, because women are incredibly attuned to weakness, to insecurity dressed up as agreeableness. And the more you fold, the more she feels like she's with a shadow, not a man. And shadows aren't loved, they're tolerated. So how do you reverse that? You draw lines, not with aggression, but with consistency. You make plans and don't change them unless there's a real reason. You have routines you don't abandon just because she texts you late. You have a purpose that doesn't revolve around her emotions. And when she challenges you, flirts with emotional manipulation, you respond like a rock, grounded, immovable, and slightly amused. Because when she sees that her chaos doesn't affect your calm, she feels something rare, a sense of security born from your leadership, not your submission. And over time, this builds a narrative in her mind. He's not like the others, and that narrative is gold. Because the man who stands alone, who isn't swayed by every feminine emotion, becomes the benchmark she measures other men against, and no one else compares, because no one else makes her feel like she has to grow to meet him. And yes, she might push back, especially in the beginning, but that's just her testing whether your strength is real or borrowed from bravado. And when you pass those tests, when you keep your identity intact in the face of her fire, she lowers her guard. Not because she's defeated, but because she's finally met a man worthy of her full trust. And once a woman trusts your emotional strength, she gives everything: her attention, her affection, her loyalty. And you never had to raise your voice to earn it, only your standard. So if you want to be unforgettable, stop explaining yourself, stop trying to please, and start showing her who you are by what you refuse to compromise on, because the most attractive men in the world don't chase validation. They carry values, and women chase that energy like oxygen because it's so rare, so real, and so rooted in something deeper than approval. It's rooted in self-respect, and that's the kind of man she'll fight to keep. Number 3, she loves to feel uncertain. When a woman can't fully predict your next move, when she feels there's more to discover in you every day, her emotional investment deepens, because uncertainty, when paired with emotional depth and authenticity, creates suspense that draws her closer. And it's this very tension between what she knows and what she doesn't that activates her desire on a level that logic can't reach. Because the truth is that certainty is emotionally flat. It gives her nowhere to go, no story to write in her mind, no mystery to return to. And the moment she feels she's figured you out, she mentally closes the book. So if you want to be the man who stays in her thoughts long after the conversation ends, the man who lingers in her emotions like a powerful scent, you must understand the paradox of masculine emotional stability. It's not about keeping her confused. It's about creating emotional elevation through subtle unpredictability, not erratic behavior, but thoughtful detachment, where she senses you're connected but never clinging, available but not guaranteed. And you create this feeling through small actions that reinforce your independence, like not rushing to respond when she reaches out, not explaining every decision you make, not laying your entire life bare in the first few interactions, and instead revealing yourself in measured layers only when it matters, because each time you let her wonder just a little, you build emotional traction, and traction is the fuel of attraction. Think about the men she's obsessed over, the ones who made her heart race, the ones she talked about with her friends, the ones who made her check her phone at midnight hoping for a reply. Were they the ones who gave her everything up front, or the ones who made her work to understand them, who kept her guessing, not by pretending, but by being too focused on something real to be always available? And this is where most men fail. They confuse honesty with over-disclosure, vulnerability with oversharing, thinking if they just lay all their emotions on the table, she'll reciprocate with love. But it's not your transparency that creates attraction. It's the sense that there's more to you than what she sees, more layers to unfold, more tension to explore. And this doesn't mean you're being distant. It means you're being deliberate. You're letting her experience the joy of emotional pursuit. Because when a woman doesn't know exactly where she stands, her mind starts working overtime to figure you out, to decode your cues, to piece together your patterns. And in doing that, she becomes emotionally engaged. And once she's engaged, she's invested. And once invested, she attaches. Because human emotion doesn't follow fairness, it follows effort. And she values what she earns, not what she's handed. So every time you break the pattern of predictability, you create a new moment of engagement, like choosing not to follow up immediately after a great date, letting her wonder if you felt the same, and then messaging her with intention a day later, not to manipulate, but to show that your world doesn't revolve around her presence. And in that space, she begins to feel the pull of someone who stands alone, someone who doesn't seek comfort through her reaction, but who moves through life on his own terms. And this is especially powerful when you're consistent with your frame, because it's not about withholding affection, It's about not offering it until it means something. And when it does, it lands with force. Because the words, "I missed you," from a man who never says things he doesn't mean, hit harder than a dozen messages from someone who says it every night out of routine. Uncertainty, in this sense, is about unpredictability that comes from your pursuit of something greater than her approval. It could be your work, your mission, your fitness, your peace, whatever it is. When she sees that she is not your source of identity, but rather someone who has to earn a place in your already fulfilling life, she becomes excited because she knows she's dealing with someone who won't disappear into her world, and women are drawn to men who won't dissolve into their presence, because that's the man who holds his value regardless of her mood, and her attraction grows in direct proportion to that emotional independence. Now, think back to every woman who lost interest. Did she lose it after you became emotionally grounded, or after you became too accessible, too predictable, too eager to please? The truth is, you gave her emotional certainty too soon, and in doing so, you gave her closure, and closure kills desire. But when you keep her emotionally curious, when your intentions are clear, but your every move is not scheduled, she gets to experience a story, not a routine. And stories are what captivate the heart. They create depth, and depth is what she truly wants, because she doesn't want to feel like she's watching a rerun. She wants to feel like she's watching something unfold in real time, and your job is to be that unfolding, to let her discover new parts of you, not because you're hiding, but because you're growing, and growth is the greatest source of masculine intrigue. So practically, how do you live this? You detach from outcome, not from care, but from need. You care about her, but you don't need her to validate you, and this allows you to move freely, to do things that are not always explained, to take space when you feel like it, to return with energy that comes from a full cup, not a needy grasp. And when she notices that you didn't check in for a day and she wonders why, that wondering is not stress, it's attraction, it's anticipation, and anticipation is where intimacy is born. Think about music. It's the pause before the drop, the build-up before the chorus that makes the moment hit harder. And you are that music when you don't give it all away at once, when you allow space, when you let moments breathe, when you move in your own rhythm, not based on her emotional cues, but based on your internal compass. You create art, and she feels that, even if she can't explain why. She just knows that being around you feels like something meaningful might happen, and that's why she stays, why she texts, why she comes back. And every man who's ever been chased by a woman understands this, even if he didn't know what he was doing, because he gave her uncertainty, maybe by accident, maybe by nature, but it worked. And the good news is, you can do it deliberately, by cultivating a life that doesn't orbit around her, by embracing mystery not as a tactic, but as a truth, because your mind is rich, your thoughts are complex, your goals are massive, and not everything is up for display. And in that space where she feels safe but never certain, cherished but never claimed, connected but never consumed, she finds a fire that doesn't die out, because it's fed by the one thing most men never give her, the emotional high of not knowing exactly what's next. Number 4, the feeling of earned reward. When she has to work for your time, your approval, and your commitment, it triggers a deeper level of emotional investment because people value what they earn, and every effort she puts in to get closer to you turns the relationship into something meaningful. She doesn't want to lose, and this principle is universal. You can see it everywhere in life, from careers to friendships to material possessions. The harder something is to get, the more it means when you finally have it. And it's no different in relationships, because the truth is, when a woman feels like she's being handed everything without having to contribute, she doesn't feel lucky. She feels bored, and that boredom leads to resentment, because somewhere inside, she knows she didn't have to grow to keep you, didn't have to rise to meet your standard, and what you're giving doesn't feel like a reward. It feels like a giveaway, and we've all seen how people treat giveaways. They're discarded, forgotten, replaced. But when a man makes her earn access to his world, to his values, to his energy, he becomes the one she can't stop thinking about, because every moment with him feels like something that had to be worked for, like a step forward in a game that actually matters. And this doesn't mean playing hard to get. It means actually being hard to get, not by pretending you're busy, but by actually living a life where your time, your focus, your energy are directed at something bigger than needing her to like you. And in doing so, you create contrast, a frame where she realizes that your attention is a reflection of discernment, not desperation, that your interest is a mirror of your values, not just reaction to beauty. And suddenly, every compliment you give becomes precious. Every text you send becomes a signal that she's doing something right, and that emotional feedback loop makes her care more, try harder, lean in deeper. And this is the paradox most men never understand. Giving more does not make her love more. In fact, it often makes her pull away, because women don't fall for men they can control. They fall for men who hold a position of self-respect so deeply rooted that they can't be moved by attention alone. And the only way she can access you fully is by proving that she can handle the level of man you've become. And this isn't about punishing her. It's about requiring that she show up as her best self, just like you've worked to show up as yours, because earned reward activates a part of the female brain tied to achievement, investment, and emotional bonding. It's the reason she cherishes the guy who didn't text her back immediately, but planned an intentional date 3 days later, more than the one who sent 100 heart emojis before meeting her in person, because effort given without being earned feels empty, but effort earned through a standard feels sacred. And that's what high-value men provide. Not availability, but aspiration. Not comfort, but growth. Not instant access, but meaningful progress. And if you've ever felt like a woman lost interest right when you gave her everything, ask yourself, did she really value you more when you were easy? Or when she had to guess a little, lean in, earn your trust, work to get your attention, and feel that thrill of emotional progress? Because humans are wired to respect effort, and that means you need to stop giving your loyalty, your affection, your compliments to women who haven't proven they deserve it, and instead build a system where your reward is tied to her growth, where your presence is something she has to climb toward, where the story she's writing in her mind about you isn't one of passive receipt, but one of active pursuit, and that pursuit turns you from an option into a priority, because you're not just showing her interest, you're giving her a roadmap, and every step she takes along that path, every positive reaction she gets from you, every small win, trains her to attach, to associate your presence with success. And when you hold the line, when you don't lower your standards for short-term attention, you reinforce that her efforts matter, that her investment changes the dynamic, and she begins to see you not just as a man she wants, but as a man she needs to continue impressing, to continue earning, and that's the foundation of lasting attraction. And maybe you've experienced this before, those rare relationships where she actually tried harder over time, where she showed up with more energy, more thoughtfulness, more care, and what was different? You didn't chase. You didn't give her everything on day one. You made her rise to your level, and she respected you for it. And more than that, she connected deeper, because her subconscious knew that this wasn't a game she could win without. Effort, and effort changes everything. It changes how she sees you, how she values your words, how much she listens, how willing she is to fight for your respect. And when you create this dynamic, you're not creating emotional distance, you're creating emotional depth, and that depth builds resilience. Because when a woman has to work for your presence, she doesn't let go easily, she doesn't ghost you after a small argument, she doesn't withdraw when things get tough. She fights, because what she earned, she wants to keep. And this is what men who give their energy too freely never understand. Easy access breeds easy exits, but earned reward builds emotional loyalty. And this isn't about manipulation, it's about meaning. Because a man who values himself enough to make her earn his commitment is a man who teaches her how valuable that commitment actually is. And once she sees that, Once she feels that, she stops comparing you to every other guy who texts her 24/7 and starts realizing she's found something rare, something solid, something she wants to work to protect. And that's the point. She's not meant to be comfortable all the time. She's meant to feel the fire of growth, the challenge of pursuit, the beauty of having something to strive for. Because deep down, women crave a story where they get to evolve. And if you rob her of that story by giving her the ending too soon, you rob her of the very experience that creates love. So let her chase, let her earn, let her feel that she's winning something real. And you'll see a side of her no man has ever unlocked, not because she's different, but because your standard required it. I'm putting together the most powerful step-by-step relationship guide ever created for men, rooted in timeless Stoic principles that have shaped the strongest, most magnetic men in history. This isn't theory. It's the hard-earned truth forged in fire, proven over generations. If you're ready to reclaim your power, command respect, and finally build relationships where you are pursued, valued, and never forgotten, stay tuned. My upcoming ebook is designed to give you everything you need to transform not just how women respond to you, but how you show up in every part of your life. This is your blueprint to becoming the kind of man she doesn't just want, but fights to keep. If this message hits something deep inside you, if you're tired of being ignored, overlooked, or undervalued, if you're ready to rise into the man you were always meant to be, support this mission. Subscribe so you don't miss the release of the ebook that will change everything. Comment below, "I'm reclaiming my power," and speak it into existence. Share this video with one man who needs to hear the truth today. Like this video so it reaches more men who are ready to lead, not follow. Every action you take helps build a movement, a tribe of focused, grounded, respected men. By supporting this channel, you help make these insights accessible to more men who desperately need them.